I think it's vandalism when you take something somebody likes and loves and tear it apart and try and stitch it and move it.
Maybe you can share a bit your story, like since when you are with Equitas, and what was your personal experience when acquiring the Screenloop brand?
Okay, so Equitas has been in interview intelligence for a long time. We started off building the business based on fairness and equality in the recruitment process. Michael Blakely, the CEO, he had a long history of doing volume recruitment for large business processing services, and even Audi was one of his clients. So he had several experience across several hundreds of thousands of interviews. And time again, he was like, the admin around the conversation and after the conversation was so important. So was there a tool in the system that we could build to make that manual process easier so that the interviews were fairer? That was the genesis of Equitas. In our growth, that led to us onboarding some of the biggest recruiters in the UK and Ireland. So, for example, the health service in Northern Ireland, crazy percentage of nurses are hired through us here. And then big, massive projects like the prison service in the UK, where we're looking for mass hiring, volume hiring at scale and at fairness. That's what was Equitas. Screenloop comes into the equation as me as a former customer of Screenloop. My experience has been as a hands-on head of talent, head of HR, and I was using the tool. And then me and Michael, we built a relationship where when we were asking each other for advice, what's going on in the market, then we started doing some alliance work together. And he saw there was an opportunity for him to acquire Screenloop. What we saw was a UX and UI that was very easy to work on the hiring manager side. Now, all of us have experienced recruitment as people who've wanted to get jobs, but also most of the time, us as people on this call who's listening to this interview, your job is not to do HR, it's not to do recruitment. And sometimes it's the frustration of, oh, I need to log into system A to do process B, that's not even my full-time job. That leads to lack of use of the tool. And then as me as a HR and recruitment leader, a frustration and then like actually, let me do this other email, let me do over this. So fundamentally, a system that flows well, that looks good for a non-power user is a sale in itself. And then also, if you think about the space we're in now, with AI-enabled work, things will be X, Y, and Z. You still see actually amazing companies actually double down on their design and product headcount, even though they're looking and reflecting on their core engineering headcount, because the differentiator for tools and services is now the UI, the UX. Does it look good? Does it follow and align with the journey of the actual person leveraging the technology? So it was a nice match.
I also read that you decided to maintain the Screenloop brand. What drove you to that decision? Like, why are you currently managing the Equitas brand and the Screenloop brand as a standalone?
Yeah, so whenever you go into a position, is a culture already exists, expectations already exist in the market. So we decided to actually, there are reasons why people like this brand. There are customers who are still paying for this brand. So let's investigate, what do they like most about it. One of my favorite thinkers is Scott Galloway. He set up L2, which is a brand advocacy consultancy. And now he does a series on startups and scale-ups called G2 Media. He did analysis of HBO Max, looked at one of the most awful rebrands in history, where I think it's vandalism when you take something somebody likes and loves and tear it apart and try and stitch it and move it. That sign and that HBO fizzle. It's something that's got a deep intrinsic love, and then so we're a little bit cautious to buy something and then rip out some of the things that made it valuable in the first place. Will this be the future going forward as two separate brands? Let's see. But our initial gut feel is there's something already there that somebody likes and loves.
From your internal perspective, like what are your internal challenges or communicating two different brand voices?
Yeah, so we made this acquisition because there were different types of customers. So Equitas is about large employers, large corporates in maybe more traditional hiring spaces. So logistics, business processing outsourcing, healthcare, very, very strong there. What we saw in Screenloop was maybe product-led startups and scale-ups, more international, smaller businesses. So we knew that there was alignment, but not overlap in customers. So we decided to have separate teams and separate responsibilities, but they had maybe a counterpart for CS, for engineering, so that we could learn from each other. And also, I look after all of the go-to-market activities for Screenloop. Michael is the CEO of Screenloop and also the founder of Equitas. We meet to make sure that one side of the business knows what the other side of the business is working on. And is there ways that we can actually do smarter things together in terms of co-branding, but also understand that there are very different ways for us to do things. An example is some of our most successful marketing activations over the last year have been us going as two separate brands. And I have one T-shirt, he has one T-shirt, and we get invited into different rooms, different conversations because of it.
Do you remember, like, was there any specific turning point for Michael to acquire Screenloop? Like, what happened that he actually said, okay, let's, instead of being like friendly rivals, let's join forces?
So it was that realization that we weren't rivals, where it was like, oh, there's something new that's near us, next to us, but not in us. So that's one revelation there. So neither was going to cannibalize each other's client base because it's unused. But then also when we looked at what did Screenloop customers say and loved, so it was the very hard brand loyalty. So Screenloop is famous for giving away fantastic merch, for example, and was also famous for great customer success. So those are things that are very hard to build out of the box. So even now to this day, people email me and go, do you have any more Screenloop socks? Or Sorsha or customer success manager, she was absolutely amazing. She did X, Y, and Z. I think that was when Michael was like, oh my God, it'll be so hard to build that from scratch. I think it's an interesting opportunity to acquire that love.
You acquired Screenloop like in January, so half a year passed now. Is there any, or what is your single most advice to any marketing, go-to-market team from your perspective, navigating through an acquisition like this one?
Yeah, I'll say be prepared to be surprised by your initial expectations. So when we first onboarded and acquired the company, we had an expectation regarding how much business would we retain from customers looking to renew. We were wildly amazed by how many customers above our expectations wanted to stay with Screenloop. And so it's that aspect there where we thought, oh, there's a lot of love for the brand, but there's change leads people to think, oh, will prices change? Will my services change? And these were understandable requirements. So that was there. How did we get to that higher than expectations in terms of retaining the business that you just bought? Is actually change initially. And we went on a 60-day plan where we just, let me, in a very rude way, shut up and listen. We're going to listen to customers. What did they like? What did they hate? There was no going to be, we're going to launch this, or there's going to be this new tag bar. Just slow down. Listen. And that allowed us then to move to the second part, which is my other advice, which is measure twice, cut once regarding new product or new brand positioning. Because that allowed us to be like, okay, maybe we don't need to move dramatically this way. maybe we just need to do X or Y. But if we'd come in with our big assumptions and we'd added a new engineering team and built this in this way because of what happened in the previous business, would have wasted time and money and maybe would have churned more customers. There's an aspect to it. Then in terms of the M&A process, what we could have maybe done better is all of the tooling and services that come with you into the new company. It's always going to be a messy handover. So with your previous team, make sure there's a bit of overlap before everyone said goodbye or new roles. So who owns the billing and the admin tools for this system that you didn't know about until you're so just take a little bit of time there. And then my third one is, however important or dramatic you feel this changes, a lot of the industry and a lot of your customers maybe don't care. Okay. I know they're busy doing their other things. They might not have even noticed your lovely blog post that talked about the acquisition. We do. So one of the things that we had to do was kind of like reintroduce, like, oh, by the way, you're coming up to renewal. Did you know that we were acquired? Like we told you 2 or 3 different times, but even in calls, we have to be just ready to retell the story because just because it's dramatic news for your company, everyone else has day jobs that are totally unrelated.
Okay. Thank you so much.